body and fertility and all the things that are unique to Prader-Willi syndrome. So I'm sort of glad they don't get sex ed in school, because it would be very wrong when they describe your body changes and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, this is my new thing that I want to do, and it takes a while. One of the things I am doing, by the way, is asking, I want it to be primarily a Q&A kind of thing. So if any of you, and I'll get my little pad out again, have any stories about your child and sexuality, and or some questions that your child may have or that you may have, that's what I want in this manual. I want to go to where they are. I want it to be user-friendly for parents, the guys themselves. So actually, my next step is to read some letters to you to prove my point about their interest in sexuality, written by adolescents who are in a group situation and they have Prader-Willi syndrome. Dear Jake, I love you so very much. You are so sweet to me. Are you still going out with me? Do you still want to get a motel together? I've been taking care of your plant, just like a woman, right? You are my best boyfriend that I ever had. I can't wait until we get married. Okay? Now, the letters that some of these guys wrote are unfriggin' believable. Dear so-and-so, I love you with all my heart. I want to just run away with you. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I will take you away from the group home if you tell me where it is. I love that one. And then he goes on to write the lyrics of, you are so beautiful, you know that song? To me, can't you see? And he goes, you're everything I hope for, you're everything I need. I thought, well, that's a clever ploy, using somebody else's words. Now, the next section of the letter, he goes on to describe in very explicit terms who's going to do what to whom, and it's a lot of sucking and licking and groping and sticking, and he refers to his penis as his guy, G-U-Y. I hadn't heard that one before. So then he moves on to, you are my hero, and I truly believe that we are soulmates. This is classic. If you truly love me, have sex with me in a few days. What girl hasn't heard that? Also, if you love me, break up with Julio. I want to be with you, I want to marry you, but I don't have that much money right now. So will you marry me and become my wife? I would also like to say that you are my fiance and my lover. So, a little romance, a little sex, a little fantasy, a lot of fantasy. This next one is from a guy who refers to his penis as his wee-wee. And he starts off very sweet. Dear sweetheart, I will let you touch my wee-wee whenever you want to, my love. I want to have sex with you. And then he goes on, there are 4 steps to the sexual encounter he wants to have. And he says step 1, step 2. So he knows exactly what he wants. And so all the steps of how they'll make love, from disrobing to who does what to whom and how. And I am so going to make you happy. I'm going to give you the best sex you've ever done before. Some of it it's pornographic. Now the same guy in a new letter says, goes on with sucking and wee-wee and all that stuff. Oh, and we are going to have sex doggy style. Which he refers to again in his next letter. You know, I'm going to stick my wee-wee in your butt. And then further down, he's talking about sperm, and he says, sperm is what boys have to make a girl to have a baby. I will love to be the father of your kids because I will put them in timeout. What goes around comes around, right? I will put them in timeout so they can know who the boss is. So he can't wait to be a father. Further on in their relationship, he says, "Dear sweetheart, I am changing my mind about you touching my wee-wee and being my girlfriend. Apparently he saw her with another guy and he didn't think that was right, so that was the end of that relationship. No wee-wee touching for her." Now this is a letter from a girl to a boy, and they have much shorter letters. The guys go on and on and on with all their descriptions. The girls just cut to the chase. Dear so-and-so, the answer is yes. We did sex last night, and I told you. Yes, we did. I'm having your baby. You love Marcia, yes or no? You love me, yes or no? Where is my ring that you said that you have something for me? Write me back and let me know what the answer is. Love, your sexy mommy. This is a new guy who starts off being pretty romantic. I love you so much, it hurts my heart when I'm not with you every minute. I love you from the tippy top of my heart to the bottom of my heart. When you look at me, you have a sexy glow and a sexy sparkle in your eyes. You smell like red and pink roses, and you taste like white chocolate and cotton candy. And then he goes on to talk about more specific sex acts. I like, you know, they try and hook you first. And then he says, I can't wait to go fishing with you and go skinny dipping with you. I can't, oh, and in the morning I'll make you breakfast in bed and then make love. Then we get out, I will give you a full body massage. You're my number one love. Da, da, da. So there, he's a little gentler than some of them. This is boy to girl. I love you very much. I'm glad that we are boyfriend and girlfriend. I will never forget the day when you came in and I thought, is she my dream girl and the one I will always wanted? These are all the things I want for a girlfriend. A list. Blonde hair, nice, sweet, sexy, easy to talk to, then you are the one. Your boyfriend. P.S. I want 4 kids, 2 boys and 2 girls. Now this, guys, is my last one. This is not handy. Dear so-and-so, thank you for your acceptance to be my girlfriend because you are the first girl who doesn't judge my roundness and accept my behavior. I want to have many kids with you. I don't know how to make love because I'm a virgin. Do you mind that I just sometimes put on a pair of women's tights? Do you mind that I smoke? Do you mind that I love men and women? Do you mind that I put women's clothes on when I am with a man? And I'm, obviously sharing that with you for a particular reason. So the question is, not that. Where'd it go? How do you think these young people learned about sex?
TV.
Hmm?
TV. Siblings.
I thought about it when I was reading, and you didn't hear the half of it, and I'm thinking, I know they haven't had that much life experience. So they're clearly learning about sex from porno sites of some kind, because it's so specific. I mean, and it had to be visual, not just because that's what they do. That's how they learn best. It's visual. So I know they're watching movies. I know they're picking up the language. I'll do it to you hard. That kind of stuff that you hear in porno sites. So I think that's really important that we acknowledge this. So why is it so important? Obviously, these letters tell us they don't have an accurate understanding of sex. They also may talk about grandiose sexual exploits, which puts themselves and others at risk, if that's overheard, like in a school or something. They are vulnerable to that same old love equals sex line that all the girls get. They'll do almost anything to appear normal. They want to please and be accepted. And they want and believe they can have children. It's not right. Their vulnerability is really, really high. They do get involved with sex for money. I know one guy who used to panhandle to get money so he could buy food, even though he would be abused in that process. I know another woman who, she lived in a group home, and she never had a history of eloping, as we say. It's a stupid word, but anyway, leaving the house. But one night she did. She left the house. It was in a sort of a city-fied area, and she went, it was during the night, and she went and found something open. This is on Long Island, so things are open. And she found a guy, and she said to him, it's not really funny. The way her mother told it to me, it was funny. And her mother told me. She said, so, this is her reporting it to her mother. So I said to him, you have a choice. Wonder where she learned that line, right? You have a choice. You can pay $5, $10, or $15. She knew to charge. He paid $10, by the way, in case you're wondering. So, any of you Jewish? You're the only one? Okay, we'll go, then I won't. So, the funny part is, her mother is a New York Jew, a self-proclaimed New York Jew. And so, her daughter's telling this story, and she goes to her daughter, "Oy vey, you could have gotten so much more." Some may intentionally try and get pregnant. I had another gal, not Prader-Willi, but she intentionally put herself in a situation with the bus driver to get pregnant, and she did. Because we weren't helping her date or do anything like that. And she was like, well, hell with you, I'm just going to get pregnant any way I can. Obviously, the rest are pretty clear. They're in the care of others, as many people with intellectual disabilities are. And they may not even know what's happening is abuse. The perpetrators know they're less likely to be believed. And of course, there's the normal desire for physical attention. And those of us who provide services, I mean, we are pretty much taught, hands off, don't touch. So, unless the person has family for hugs and kisses and all that good stuff, they don't have much affection in their lives. I was involved in a rape trial with a gal with Prader-Willi syndrome who was accusing her stepfather of having raped her years ago, and it came out in a therapy session. when they called upon me as an expert witness, I was like, oh shit, but they lie so much. I'm not sure I can take on this. It goes against everything I know about Prader-Willi syndrome. But I did know the person, and I looked into the record and read her testimony there was no question she was telling the truth. So we go to trial, and actually we had to go to 2 trials, because there was a hung jury or something, and you go back, and she didn't win, which was very painful for her. But as women, we know this happens anyway, so less likely to be believed. One other story I think is important, that lack of knowledge. So this refers to a guy who didn't have Prader-Willi syndrome, but he had intellectual disabilities. And he was given the opportunity to use pornography to please himself in his own bedroom, and so that happened. He had access to pornography. Well, on one occasion, he's out in public, I think it was some kind of little restaurant, and he approached a young girl, and he touched her and said something, and you can imagine the rest. Now, on the one hand, we thought we were doing the right thing. He's an adult, and on the other hand, we weren't paying attention to the fact that he's not getting that stuff you see in the porno mags is fantasy, that people aren't really having sex out in the jungle with tigers or children, and nobody's helping him sort that out, because we really don't want to. Go in your room with your magazine. Wow, what a dangerous situation that was for him. So that's important. That doesn't mean I'm not a big fan of porno, but it does speak to needing real information. In 2010, I did a survey about sexual activity for folks with Prader-Willi syndrome, and I'm very quickly going to go through it. These are from the U.S., although I do have some European data, and they're so much more open than the U.S. So 56.6%, this all came from providers. Had been in a romantic relationship with sexual behavior ranging from hand-holding to intercourse and oral genital sex. In Europe, there was 100%, and 31 were having intercourse or oral sex. Another small study found that 50% of their population had been in a date and kissed romantically. Of the 28% of the individuals who were sexually active beyond just affection, including intercourse, 70% had partners who also had Prader-Willi syndrome, so that probably had to do with access. But the remaining 30 had partners who did not have Prader-Willi syndrome, which means those females who had non-Prader-Willi partners were at a higher risk for pregnancy. Because we know, well, I had first 4 women with PWS given birth. Dan said 5. I'm trying to check out that 5th one. But some women with Prader-Willi have given birth. And 2 are typically developing, and I think the other 2 both have Angelman syndrome. There's no relationship between genetic subtype and getting pregnant, UPD versus deletion. There are no documented cases of a male being able to father a child, and that's unlikely to ever happen because of their hypogonadism. Do any of the folks identify as gay or lesbian? Yes, they do, and sort of at the same percentage as the general population. I know of only one transgender male to female with Prader-Willi syndrome. I think there's more. You remember the letter where there's this new category called gender fluid. I don't know. And those are people who don't want to be identified as one gender or the other. And I'm a college professor, and I can't even keep up with them. So gender fluid, and remember that letter. Do you mind if I wear women's clothing? So that's a real thing. I don't think these numbers reflect the truth, because people who live in group homes know to hide things really well, and they're very good at it. Because they don't want to get the disapproval of their caretakers or their family. So if they're engaging in homosexual acts, they're probably trying to do it privately. Now these are folks who identify as gay or lesbian. Many more have had same-sex sex, but aren't necessarily identified as gay or lesbian. In my study, no one was married. Some had a commitment ceremony, and the reason they didn't get married was because it would affect their financial benefits. Very smart. 3 individuals were officially engaged, the other 4 were unofficially engaged with plans to be married, and this other small study, Hirsch, 100% of the males, I love this, 100% of the males wanted to get married, but only 64% of the females wanted to get married. And that's a real live couple who are engaged. Hirsch study reports that 77% of the males wish to have hormonal treatment to increase penis size, whereas only 43% of the females wanted hormonal treatment to have their periods. Makes sense to me. The increased growth hormone helps in that regard as well, but there are men with such a micro penis. It's hard to pee. It's really helpful to have a larger penis. The other issue is, a friend of mine, we sort of laugh about this, but where the heck are they going to get condoms? They just don't make them that small. Oh, you're so kind. But now it's a mess, right? I'll have to wing it. So I asked the agencies, do you have policies and procedures sort of guiding you in terms of who gets to do what when? 53 said yes, 7 said no. And then I asked about training for the staff to help them recognize and speak about it with the individuals they're working with. Just get comfortable with it. And only 8 said yes, they provide some kind of staff training, and it's usually just part of the orientation in terms of, like, it's their right to have privacy, not really about sexuality or sexual expression. Were the residents being given any sex ed training? Only 4 of the agencies did provide some kind of group. It was usually a group sex ed kind of thing. It was probably more like, the program Circles? Well, there's these commercial programs that say, how far out from you are these people, and they're strangers, and they can't touch you, and you can't touch them, which the minute that program's over, they go ahead and do whatever they're going to do anyway. I'm not a fan of commercial programs. I think we need to develop our own individualized programs using the folks we know as the actors, actually. Some provided it on an as-needed basis, which meant they identified a couple, and another 2 only did abuse prevention training. And it's usually stranger danger, and that's not the problem. That's not who abuses them, by and large. About half of the agencies provided opportunities for dating, but not many provided opportunities for any kind of intimacy. So, based on what I read to you and what I found, we have to step up to the plate here. I don't care that they have low hormonal levels. They are affected, if not, and that reduces their physiological sex drive. They have a social sex drive, as we can see, and they're going to do it somehow, somewhere. And they're going to believe they can have babies too, and that's just not right. So we have a responsibility, I think, to talk about sex, but also talk about relationships. Ideally you want sex in the context of a relationship, and also to help them protect themselves from sexual abuse, which is really tough, because when it comes to money or food and sex, they're very vulnerable, extremely vulnerable. So it should begin in school, as it does with typical students. However, as I said before, it can't be that same kind of program. It just can't be, because that's not for them. So I'm hoping just today will get us to start talking about it and acknowledging the reality of this. And I don't know, maybe you guys are all more open than we are in the States, but we have agencies who are in the just say no, because they don't want any liability issues coming up. I don't know if you do anything here. I don't know if we should have policies. Any thoughts on?
Just my understanding is it seems to vary from service provider to service provider, and it varies from the person who is looking or is caregiver for that person within the service provider. So, yeah, there's no ruling on it.
No. One of the issues we've had in the States is if we have staff who have a particular religious bent, which is very conservative and you can't have sex until you're married, and they're not supposed to impose that upon the residents, but they often do. So that's where the staff need to be
Fired.
Well, fired, but first maybe trained. It's a big issue, imposing your own values on them. The other issue is consent. I don't know if you do that here.
We were told that, that because they don't have capacity, they cannot give consent, so it's illegal.
Well, who says they don't have capacity?
Psychologists, they don't have capacity, so.
Well,
What's it illegal? Don't say? Because they don't have
Let me-
capacity, so they cannot give consent.
that is such a cop-out. I mean, I know a lot of people having sex
Yeah.
who don't have capacity.
That's right.
And back in the day when I was getting people out of institutions, one of the things I learned is people with very severe disabilities can have meaningful relationships that may move into sex, and they're have really low IQs, but they sit together in the group home, or they wait for the other to come home, and they hold hands and they do things together, and it may move into something sexual. And I am so resentful of these idiotic consent interviews, and we have booklets, you know. First you have to name all the body parts, and then you have to do this, and then you have to know they're coming out of the rain, all this ridiculous stuff, when really you want to look at the relationship. One of the things I was saying before, I like sex in the context of a relationship, and there are people more and more, I think, who are getting married and living together with supports. If, as a parent, the one thing I'm sure that you all want more than anything else beyond just safety and good health is that your child is loved by somebody. I know that's what I want. I don't know how anybody's going to love that older one of mine, but anyway, I'll have to live forever. But part of that is nurturing relationships. And then if it evolves into something sexual, to be there to support that in the right ways. This is we're bad at this. We're bad at this. I mean, I know some parents who would love to see their child in a meaningful relationship, living together, and doing okay with supports. How about you?
My daughter's here with me, she's 36. She's just recently become engaged.
Congratulations.
My plan is, that's our next big plan, is somehow, and her fiance is not Prader-Willi, for them to live together. Because at the end of the day, everybody around them has a partner. I have a partner, the sister has a partner, the brother has a partner, everybody around them has a partner. That's what they want.
They're telling us. I mean, I don't know how they could be more explicit. And I'd rather them start talking about romance and relationships instead of I want to put my wee-wee in your butt. I mean, that's so out of context, right? Anybody else know of any relationships?
Certainly my daughter has,
she definitely has a boyfriend. She's had a boyfriend for a very long time, and they have had sex. And she's not going to do it anymore until they get married. She hasn't said when they're going to get married, and a lot of the relationship depends upon who's gifting a present to who. Yeah, but she has somebody to love, and he loves her back, so you're right about that.
A lot of them just want to be able to say, I have a boyfriend, I have a girlfriend. I want to tell you one other story. This is at a residential agency, and there's this couple, they both have Prader-Willi syndrome, and he has a lot of behavior problems. He can be very aggressive. Well, his girlfriend, they don't live together because of that, and she won't let him come over on their date night or whatever unless he's had a pretty good week. And the person who shared the story with me said she's done more for his behavior than all the behavior plans in the world, because there's something, it's worth it. He's got something to be good for. He's getting that attention. I know we're almost out of time. Any other questions?
So two things, BJ. So the residential facilities that I look after, there are several individuals in relationships. There's been a couple of marriages. Where do the parents get involved is my question, particularly if the parents are the guardians. In other words, we have some parents that are fine with it, but some other parents that really don't want their children having sex.
Well, first
So
of all, guardianship does not mean that the kid can't be in a relationship. It just people are very confused about guardianship, and so they can't say no, really. But that's not how we want to operate. We want to work with parents, and I think it is very important if there's a relationship that relationship also be talked about in the context of the family culture, the family religion, and therefore parents are involved. They can withhold consent for marriage. This is in the States, I don't know how it works here, but not having a relationship.
Well, yeah, it puts the residential facility in a hard place.
Right.
The parents were adamant. They
Right.
sat down, our behavioral analyst, Mark Lister, or whatever, will sit down and talk with them, but if the parents are adamant, it puts
Right.
the residential facility in a hard place.
Right, and that's...
The other parents are pretty...
I know.
And that's good.
And that's part of why I'm talking about this, because you can either get on the bus or be off the bus. And as parents, I just want everybody to think about those letters. And is that the extent of sex ed you want your kid to have? Is that the relationship you want your kid to have? Because, like I said, just say no isn't working. And so to enlist parents to help shape their experience in the best way possible.
No, I think that's great. And, other parents are maybe, they haven't talked, but I think if they talk with other parents and there's this openness, I think it'll help open up a lot of...
Nobody wants to talk about it. That's the problem.
No, I think it's good. The second point I want to raise is about the males. So, going back a couple of decades, I've been in this field for quite a bit. The dogma in the field was the female, nobody could get pregnant.
Right.
And then there was 1, 2, 3, 4, at least maybe 5 that have been genetically confirmed.
Right.
Because there's a lot of people that have been diagnosed with Prader-Willi, by the way, that do not have Prader-Willi, a lot of adults that I see in my clinics. But there's been a number, 4 or 5, that have been genetically proven. So, switching to the males, how do we know all the males are infertile? I don't think we know that. I have some males that have pretty in the normal range of testosterone without any supplement, and some have normal gonadotropins. Jen Miller just told me last week that she tested several males and they have normal inhibin, which is important for fertility. We have males in the residential facility that are doing intercourse, having ejaculates. What I've told my residential facility where we have at least 35 or 40 males, is that we need to look at those sperm samples that ejaculate to see the semen analysis, see what the sperm count
Right.
is, what's the motility, and what's
Right.
the morphology. You can tell a lot from just a simple semen analysis. So I
Right.
think that's something we need to invest, not just assume all the males are infertile like we assumed all the females.
Well, based on, I've been working with Susie on this, Susie Cassidy, and based on what we know right now, it's not going to happen.
I don't think we know that for every single individual.
Well,
just
we know
like-
nothing about every single
Yeah.
individual.
Just like
And
we-
I suppose if somebody were in a relationship and he had Prader-Willi syndrome, that's the guy I would have checked out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if it's possible, I'd look at a semen analysis.
Right.
Is what I'm saying.
Right.
And we assume Fragile X males couldn't have sperm ejaculate, but they do.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, they have the pre-mutation in their sperm, not the mutation that they've got in their blood.
Okay, I'm going to stop you, Dan, because this lady wanted to ask a question and my time's up. Go ahead.
I've got a baby, so this is a long way off.
Oh, good.
But, I just want to know, when's a good idea to start talking about this? Do you talk like typically aging, like my
Yeah, I think, you start with your body and but the thing is they're developmentally younger, and so you only give information obviously that makes sense for them to have. These teenagers though have information that has probably no real meaning to them, but it's dangerous. So just know your kids are on the internet.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where they're getting this. So we need to keep up with them with that. And hopefully, like with all our kids, we hope that they'll come to us if they have some questions. But they know to hide.
You just have to bring it up any
Yes.
time. We brought it up at the dinner table.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, it's just, that's what happens. But also, too, it doesn't matter if a male can father a child or not. You still have to teach them safe sex. You know, so, and then you got to find the condoms.
Yeah, the condoms are a problem. Yeah, STDs are real.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes, and not every partner has Prader-Willi syndrome.
Yeah.
And so it's just a lot more nuanced than other folks with intellectual disabilities. And I mean, like I said, I hope maybe you'll sign up and you'll send me stories and questions so I can put them in my training guide. And so we can, it really bothers me how many of them think they can have babies.
Oh, mine is. And I've told her that not everybody has babies. You know, some people don't have it. She says, well, I will be. And I
Right.
says, why is that? Because I've got two nieces in their 40s, got sperm brought over from America, and they've both had babies, and she's going to do what they're doing.
So she knows about in vitro.
Not really, but she thinks she does.
BJ, thank you so much for that talk. It's very, very enlightening.